Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Alonda Carter and I am the recovering Hunbot. I create anti-MLM videos, so if you enjoy anti-MLM content, you might want to consider subscribing. Today's video is a collaboration with Monica Siembieda, and like me, she's a former Beachbody coach. So we just have a little bit of a chit chat. On my channel, it's going to be part 1 and her channel is part 2, and I'll leave a link to her channel in the description and also throw up a card. If you haven't subscribed to Monica's channel, I suggest you do because she makes some amazing anti-MLM content. Let's talk about how do you support creators like myself and like Monica. One thing you can do is give our videos a thumbs up and also leave a comment. That really does help push videos to be seen more, so that would be ever so helpful. Another thing you can do is you can join my Patreon. I've created 3 tiers. They're all very reasonable, ranging from $1 to $10 a month. Monica also has a Patreon on her channel as well, so you can check that out. And now on with the video. All right, welcome Monica. Thank you so much for meeting me. I'm very excited to collaborate with you on another video.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And a few weeks ago, you emailed me asking me about had I had any videos demonetized, because we both, as we're having a conversation, we both noticed that our reach dropped, our subscriber rate dropped, our engagement, like everything just kind of went. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. I had to say, yeah, because I emailed you because all of a sudden I started seeing like the demonetization thing on my videos, and YouTube doesn't really, from what I've gathered from other YouTubers as well, YouTube never really tells you why they're doing that. And so I saw that, yes, I could put it under review, but I was curious as to if it was just me that was experiencing it, or if someone, or if, you were also experiencing it because of our message, of our anti-MLM stuff. So that's why I had contacted you, just to see if you were experiencing the same problem that I had.
Well, I definitely did see that there was a clear difference in my channel, starting around the same time, like when you emailed me that. And I kept looking on Social Blade going, WTF, WTF, what is going on here? And this is right around the time that we started seeing videos come out on COPPA, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which goes into effect January 1st, which will impact thousands of channels that are making content directed to children. Our content, if a child is watching our content, I mean, you need to take that child to see a psychiatrist or something, because our content is not for kids. And clearly, I know you have looked in your analytics, I've looked in my analytics, and I've not had anybody 13 years old watching my stuff. And they should, like I said, they shouldn't be, they really shouldn't be. It's not for kids. But other people who are concerned are like gamers, and I'm sure people doing like reviews, like movie reviews and all kinds of different things, that there's people that are really concerned. And that's why we started talking about, like, how is this impacting anti-MLM channels?
Yeah, and the thing that I've noticed, because obviously everyone's talking about it on YouTube, about the FTC and COPPA and everything, but I don't know how many videos you've watched, but all the ones that I've watched, they're basically channels more so for adults, because who's to say that adults don't like gaming, adults don't like figurines or Pokemon, for example, or things. Yeah, I'm talking to you, to my fiance. But who's to say that adults can't like these things? And the problem is that those channels, obviously kids will like that stuff too, but the language that certain people, I guess the way that certain people talk, is not for everybody, and it's not for children. But I don't know if you saw, they even said that if you say words like whatever, cool, duh, that can be considered targeted towards kids, or if you have like bright colors and stuff like that. And a lot of people put that in their thumbnails. I mean, I started doing it too, just to like kind of make everything pop. But me as an adult, I like bright colors. I like people that say things like whatever or cool, that's just what I grew up on. I mean, that was our slang when I was much younger. And so that's why I feel as though I get why, you know, they have this act, and I get why they're trying to protect the children. And I totally agree that there should be something that is protecting the children. And that is YouTube's fault for collecting data from children, so that's their own fault. But at what point is it just completely, I mean, just like I said, at what point is it completely out of control where they say that only, like, this can be targeted towards children as well if we say one little tiny word? I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm not a parent, so I really don't know how it is to have kids or have to watch them or monitor them or anything like that. So that's just me, though.
I'm not a parent, well, I'm a step parent, but you know, the kids don't like live with us or anything. And really for me to be able to see them, it's rare because they live like an hour away. I can remember when we would take the kids with us and we'd go to where his parents live, and we'd be in the car, and my husband would just give them his cell phone when they were much younger. And myself, I'm thinking, this piece of equipment costs a lot of money, and I'm not going to hand it to a 7-year-old to be an entertainment device. And maybe that comes from me also having been a teacher or something. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have children either. But I think of, you know, I don't remember what they were doing, if it was games or if they were watching YouTube. I do know they both watch a lot of YouTube now. A lot of kids do. And so I'm kind of like you. Where is it, this line drawn? Where does personal responsibility come in? Where does parental responsibility come in? Where is all of that in the mix?
Yeah, exactly. Because all of the videos, I mean, I don't know if it's just people are kind of jumping the gun and not necessarily over traumatizing the situation, but it's just a lot of people, a lot of channels, a lot of our favorite content creators are in a lot of trouble because, you know, and this is something that I actually wanted to say. I think I might have said it in another video, but there are some content creators out there that I actually watch, and they don't do sponsorships, and they do that because they don't want sponsored content on their channel, and that is their choice. So they rely on ad revenue or Patreon, which I totally respect I guess why they're doing it. But at the end of the day, if ad revenue was solely what they were relying on, this can really change a lot of things and put a lot of people in the hole, I guess you could say, because some people have made YouTube their only source of income. Now, of course, that is that's on the content creator. That is not necessarily their fault, but we all knew that, you know, when you're a YouTuber, you don't really have, I guess, your channel, yes, it's your channel, but you don't really have the right to be able to just do YouTube forever. YouTube can shut you down whenever they feel like it, and they could do it for whatever reason they feel they need to shut it down for. So that's kind of on the content creators, that they were making that their only source of income. You do need to branch out, and you do need to make a brand, and I think that a lot of people didn't do that, and that's why they're in trouble right now. So that's just, you know, that's just from what I've seen on YouTube. And I know a lot of people are upset about it, and I get why they are, because just from being a small channel, I mean, just from my little baby channel and my little tiny ad revenue, I can see how much you can potentially make, because it's honestly, when I saw it, it's a lot more than I expected, because I've been blogging for so long and I had ads on my blog and everything, but it was nowhere near what YouTube is. And it's probably because everyone's on YouTube now. But I mean, that's their own fault. And I'm not trying to sound like a jerk or anything, but it is kind of their own fault that they didn't make themselves into a brand. They only have this one source of income. But of course, at the same time, I don't think that the responsibility should fall just on the content creator. I do think that YouTube made a big mistake. They were collecting the data, and then now, even though after all of this unfolded, the FTC is saying that they can come after each content creator. So it's no longer YouTube's, responsibility, it's the content creator's responsibility. And how is each content creator, because of how generalized this whole thing is, how is a content creator supposed to know, what would be how are they supposed to know what the FTC thinks is for kids? Because, for example, I set my channel to not for kids because it's not. The topics I talk about, it's really not. I don't see how any child would find it interesting. My analytics show that the youngest person watching my channel is 18 years old. So I don't see how it would be, interesting. But at the same time, they even said that even if you do set it to not for children, you can still get your channel taken away because of X, Y, and Z. So it's just, I don't know if it's being over dramatized or if the YouTube apocalypse is actually coming or what the case may be, but you could probably share some of your opinions on that.
Well, I do know there are some channels, like family vloggers and stuff, who depend exclusively on AdSense. And like you said, they made a choice not to do brand deals. Now, if you are going to be a YouTube creator and your end goal is to be able to be a content creator full time, and honestly, I would love to be able to reach that and, really do something very meaningful in this world where I feel like I'm creating something that's really helping people, because you and I both are here to, guide and educate and inform about, scams with MLMs and, other things that we may find interesting and related to that or not related to that. But I feel that our minds and our hearts are in the right place to, be that light post, to be that guidepost. And myself, and I know we both have Patreons, and it's not like we have this huge Patreon network, but we're baby little tiny channels. But we also both know that we do need to branch out into these other things if we ever do want to be able to be a full-time content creator. Now, is it going to impact people that have been relying on AdSense, and are they going to lose their sole source of income? Highly possible. Like, even like the DIY, which was it, do it yourself, whatever it is. Those kind of channels, they can be impacted. Product reviews, depending, like if you're reviewing toys, and there are plenty of adults that collect toys. Heck, I have like Walking Dead toys things that I collect too. So I
have so many Funko Pops, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I have some that my husband got me. But I mean, I had to, oh crap, I was going to say, there was somewhere I was going. You know how that is where you have a thought and that train gets derailed. Yeah, my train cars get derailed all the time. Oh, I know what it was going to be. Okay. And I mentioned this to you. I've watched some videos by Roberto Blake on this, and Ian, I can't remember his last name, he's a lawyer, and Roberto and Ian have done a couple of collabs about COPPA. And I've also seen other content creators create some videos about the fact that within the COPPA law itself, there is a generalized setting where they realize there is a generalized audience that may appeal to kids, but it's not intended for kids. We don't have that ability to choose a generalized audience. And possibly YouTube looked at that and maybe it was too costly to do it. I don't know. But literally, that was taken away. And that, I think, if we had generalized audience choice, that would be everybody's go-to. It's like, okay, like I will just be generalized.
Yeah. And going back to, this is a whole nother topic that I have my own opinion on, but going back to like the family vlogging channels and everything, I do think that with those particular channels, there needs to be some kind of, not necessarily a rule, but I feel as though a lot of the parents, and this is just my opinion, but I feel as though a lot of the parents are, what's the word I'm looking for? exposing their children to all of this without their, I guess you could say, their consent, because all their lives are all on the internet. And while, yeah, you can look back at all of these things and basically watch, like how when I was younger, we had home movies, and, you know, all of my birthdays are on a VHS tape somewhere in my parents' basement. But the thing is that they're exposing them to this whole entire world of the internet. And I don't know, I do think that there has to be something put in place. Yeah, so I think that because YouTube was all about, at one point, YouTube was all about being family friendly. And I think that with that, that's where all of these like blogging channels came from. And I think that that's when the FTC started kind of investigating things, because all of a sudden you have all of these kids on YouTube. And do you know, just out of curiosity, because I don't know, do you know if YouTube Kids has AdSense on their videos? Or are they strictly no ads whatsoever? They're no ads.
I don't know. I can Google it right now.
My fiance just said that there's no ads, because I was wondering.
That's what I'm sorry. But that's why people are upset about being, if it's normal content stuff, they get put on YouTube Kids, they don't get the ad revenue.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of channels are to help.
Okay. You heard him, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that makes sense, because I know YouTube Kids didn't like really take off. And if you can't do advertising, yeah, that would be why. Because it's like, well, why will I put my content there if I can put it here and I have the potential to get ad revenue?
Yeah. And the thing is here's another problem too that they kind of have to look at too, is it's kind of going back to what you were saying about how your husband was giving his cell phone to his kids to be able to, you know, kind of have something to play with while they were in like a car or whatever. But the thing is some of these parents are handing off their cell phones to these kids, and what if they're not going on YouTube Kids, they're going on regular YouTube? So it's one of those things where it's kind of, there's so many little things that are wrong with the whole entire situation. And with the whole FTC cracking down on this, I just want to know, what's the word I'm looking for? I just want to know how they even, I guess, started investigating this whole thing, because if we want to tie it into the anti-MLM stuff, for example, because when it comes to like MLM and going after specific MLMs, like, you know, certain companies or whatever, there has to be a certain amount of complaints to the FTC for them to actually investigate fraud. So why is it that none of that stuff is actually happening, but all of a sudden there's like this huge, you know, problem here on YouTube?
Well, I can just throw in my 2 cents about this. And this is really the way I view all social media. When social media first came on the scene, no one had a bloody idea what it was going to become. No one had a crystal ball. You can't know. Well, you can't know in 1998 what's going to be going on in 2019. You know, I mean, the two just aren't going to go together. And I think that it's just, I mean, for instance, and I will tie this to MLM, because back in the day, there was a time on Facebook when people could do those before and after pictures and they would get noticed. And people were, you know, paying attention to that. And MLM started getting all janky on there. By the time I was in Beachbody, if you did posts like that, little did I know that I was referred to as a Hunbot. I had no idea until I discovered that I was. So it goes back to the same thing like with MLM. Facebook could not have predicted that multi-level marketing would come in and start doing all this janky type stuff, and there would need to be changes with their algorithm and all these other kind of changes that are going on. YouTube couldn't have predicted that kids would start watching this, or that what YouTube would become either. And now it's almost like we're trying to go retroactively figure out, like, how do we plug this hole up? And meanwhile, the monster is out of the box. We've already opened Pandora's box, and it's out there. It's part of our culture now. What do we do? How do you control the monster now that it's out there?
Because here's something actually, when you said Facebook, it reminded me of something. Because here's something that I see all the time. And this is why, because all of this stuff is very blatantly out there on social media. Every single time that I see a sponsored ad in my Facebook, and it's been all MLM stuff. Now, I don't know why I don't know if it's because of my anti-MLM Facebook group. I don't know what it is, but it's been all multi-level marketing. Every single ad that I get from Facebook, it all says the same thing about recruiting people. It's out there in the open. It's on social media, and obviously anybody can see those ads. How is it that, one, Facebook is allowing those ads because that just screams pyramid scheme? Two, since it's out in the open and there's an abundance of it, how has the FTC not looked at that and said, hey, you shouldn't be promoting recruitment, because that is what a pyramid scheme is recruiting. And I think that with MLMs, I say this all the time, but they're walking that very fine line of what is legal and ethical and what is unethical and illegal. So I don't know if it's that that the FTC doesn't see it as a problem per se. I mean, I don't want to be, allegations or anything like that, but I feel as though this specific topic is not getting taken seriously. And I do think that with all of the people that are coming out, because here's the thing, is when Hunbots say, well, only 1% make it because they work their butts off and, they do all the hard work and everything. That's not it, because every single person that I've talked to, I can't even tell you how many people, I've lost count, but the amount of people that I've talked to, the amount of people that are in my Facebook group, and when they talk about their friends and their family, the amount of people that have lost money or have not made any money is extremely alarming. So for these Hunbots to say, well, that 1% is doing it because they worked really hard, no, it's the structure. And when they try to say, and they try to come back at us and say, well, you can't blame the company because that would be like blaming another company or whatever that you've worked for. And it is the company. Multi-level marketing is set up for people to fail, and it's set up for people to not, because the people, like the founders and the CEOs and everyone at the top is making all of the money on the backs of other people, and on the failures, I'll use that term very, very lightly, but on the failures of everybody else too. That's just, I don't know, that's my opinion.
No, I'm right there with you, and I have made mention a number of times and provided links to the late Dr. Taylor's work, who he researched the income disclosures and compensation plans of like over 500 companies, and and he lays it all out. In conversations that I've had with Robert Fitzpatrick, Douglas Brooks, and David Breyer, who have all three of them been involved in investigating this stuff for at least 20 years, if not longer. It all goes back to this is they're product-based pyramid schemes. That's what it is. The business model is the problem due to the endless chain recruitment that happens. And all of these people that you've talked to, that I've talked to, stories that I've shared, plus other people who speak out about it, we aren't these anomalies. We are not these people who just did not try really hard and did all this stuff. But what we also happened to us is we were indoctrinated into the MLM cult. Because I know you've done a video on the connection to cults. I've done that Beachbody is a cult. And I mean, that's part of what I want to start talking about is this dark side to MLM, this underbelly of how people are indoctrinated, brainwashed, how you keep being sucked back in because of all this stuff, because it does mess with your head. And that's something that I don't think people realize. And typically when people leave their MLM, unlike you and me, who we are here showing our warts and talking about it, and because we want to warn other people, most people just kind of like go into that good night, slink away because they just don't want to talk about it again. You know, they just want to put it behind them. And maybe they will talk to me on my Google form, but they don't want to be on camera. Maybe they'll talk to me in my group, but they don't want to be on camera. And I get that because of the shame, the blame, all of these things. But everything that we've gone through is not that different from people who have been like in Scientology and then decided to leave and are now coming out and talking about it, or other cults as well that are coming out and speaking about it. But I do feel that we need to come at it from that angle of what's going on, what's happening to you mentally when you first are introduced to whatever opportunity it is. And boy, I feel like I just went down a dark rabbit hole.
Well, here's to say something to that. I don't know have you listened to the Dream podcast yet? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I started listening to it because one of my subscribers told me to listen to it because it's very well researched and investigated, and they have a lot of really good people on that podcast. I forget which episode it was. I think it was like episode 4 or 5, but they had it was someone that was really high ranking in 31. And she was talking to her downline and everything, you know, spewing the whole Hunbot message. I'm not going to lie. When I was listening to it, I was like, I know exactly why I fell for this shit. Because I was listening to her and I was like, she made it sound like the dream. She made it sound like this is achievable. And it's not, because she started out very, very early on, and she basically recruited everybody in her entire, like, 3-county radius or whatever it was. So she was lucky. I really honestly think it has to do with luck. It's just if you can get in early and if you can recruit everybody in your entire state, then yeah, you'll make money, because then you get money from all of their recruits and their recruits, and it just kind of, you know, just goes down the pyramid.
No, and I always say that I believe it is also related to whether or not you have influence when you start. For instance, a couple of years ago, there was in Beachbody, she just started, but she had been a Spanish soap opera. Okay. She became a 5-star diamond. Well, hello, you had influence. So if you have influence and join, you will do well. But if you're a regular person, and maybe you're a regular person, but you are a cheerleader in high school, you're a cheerleader in college, you're also in a sorority, you have this huge network, that's one thing. Or you're a lingerie model, so, you know, people are anything where you have influence. But if you're just the average regular person, they make it sound like you can do it. And I will tell you this honestly, because as I research these things, I'll be listening to some people's stuff and there's still a part of my brain that goes, oh, that sounds kind of good. That sounds good. But I'm going, I know better, but I hear it and I see the appeal because I want to believe it. I wish it did work. It would be great if it did work, because we would not be sitting here and talking about it. We'd already be sitting on our mountains of money. But, you know, it doesn't.
Yeah, and to go along with the influencer thing too, or to have influence, I don't know, there's 2 things I wanted to touch base on with that. I don't know if you heard, but with Arbonne recently, an Olympic, I forget what. Oh yeah, so you saw that, and so she's using Arbonne products now. But then I also heard from someone in my anti-mlm Facebook group saying that apparently Will Smith or someone, I don't remember, but it was on Jada's Red Table Talk or whatever, how now they're using Arbonne. And I don't know if it's true, but now the Arbonne puns are going to be like, well, we have celebrities that are endorsing our products or whatever, you know, they're going to say about that. So it's, I don't know, that annoys me. But then on the other hand too, I don't know if you are super active on Instagram or not, but whenever I come across these Hunbots, from whether it be especially Arbonne and Monet or Monat, however you say it, they each have, I don't know if you noticed, but they each have their own specific Lightroom preset that they use for their photos. So every single time that I see it, I can tell if it's Arbonne or Monet.
Oh no.
Yeah, and the thing is that they have a large following. Whether I'm hoping that it's an organic following, and I hope that it's not a ton of bot accounts, but they have a lot of influence, and their Instagrams are aesthetically pleasing, and it shows them on trips and on beautiful islands, and look at me, I'm drinking my coffee over the balcony of this like beautiful resort or whatever, and it's paid for by blah 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 MLM. So it you do have a point there with the whole influence thing.
Well, let me just piggyback on that because, and I haven't talked about this yet, but doTERRA partners with Tour of the Utah Jazz. Yeah, so don't you know those Hunbots are going to be grabbing on that? Plus,
oh yeah.
David Brer of MLM, the American Dream Made Nightmare. You've probably heard me talk about them sometimes. I talk to him almost daily through email. He has been instrumental in helping me understand this because when I decided to go down this rabbit hole, one of the things that I knew is that I need to align myself with people who have been involved in speaking out against this for a long time. And when I started doing my research, that's how I was able to connect with David, with Doug, and with Robert. And Robert Fitzpatrick was, I think it was the second episode of The Dream. I think he was in more than one. But David sent me, and I haven't had time to look into this, and I just pulled it up. Where is it? Have you ever heard of the show Absolutely Fabulous?
I think so. It rings a bell.
It's from the UK. Well, this person who was one of the stars of it, Joanna Lumley, she is now basically hawking a company that's called Utility Warehouse, which is an MLM that started, I believe, in the UK, which again, I have not read through all of this. And David sent me just like a whole bunch of literature on it for me to look into. But that's another instance of someone with influence who is, talking about this stuff. And I think we both saw something on Tori Spelling, and I can't remember which one Tori Spelling is doing. And I'm like, oh, girlfriend, I guess 90210 just, didn't pay you enough. I don't know. Yeah,
and it's that's another thing too, to tie this back into the original about the FTC and COPPA, and the whole point of why we wanted to make this, we just ramble. But to go back to that, the FTC sees all of this because it's public, it's made public. And I just don't understand how, with it being as big as it is, that they haven't actually looked into it. And I don't know if they're afraid to do it. I don't know if it's just me sitting here thinking about it. It's just a much bigger beast to tackle than my little brain can handle. I mean, I don't know if it's just, I know that they have to have a ton of proof and they have to have complaints. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're not as active in pursuing these things, is because there aren't enough complaints. But I mean, if you look at certain lawsuits and stuff, I mean, even I just, researched Herbalife, but even if you look at Herbalife, for example, the FTC already sued them and they had to restructure their business already. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know how these MLMs can, I don't know if it's also because there's so many MLMs popping up and they just can't, I guess, keep up with all the different ones that are coming out. Because some of them come out and they fall within a 6-month period and then they're gone. But I mean, I don't know. That's my thought process.
Well, there's another problem, and I know in some of Robert's articles that I've read, and I just pulled his recent one that came out on Seeking Alpha, if it would just go up, is titled The Agony and Angst MLM Investors Ponder Enforcement Policies at the FTC. Now, Robert's book, he has been writing a book about the history of MLMs, and according to this, it's supposed to be coming out in, let me sit down here, okay. He has spent the last 2 years writing this book called Ponzinomics, and it is the comprehensive treatment on the history and development of the MLM phenomenon, to be published early in 2020. But I know that through things that I've read that he's written, and maybe it's been Dr. Taylor and just like other people that have done research, there have been people that work in the FTC that were with MLMs, or they were like, in politics, and then they go into the FTC. And I mean, it's like they're all just like connected in some way. And there's also the problem that I know when I've talked to David and stuff, people like at the FTC, or usually like the lower level people and even higher level people, they don't really understand how destructive the model is, because the fairy tale has been put out there for so long. I mean, we have Betsy DeVos, within that she has with the Department of Education. I forget what her title is within all of this, and she's not the first person, from an MLM family to have gotten in somewhere. So it's a lot deep rooted than we want to think. We want to think it'd be so easy, well, we could just all complain and it'll happen, but there's all these other things going on too behind closed doors. David, for instance, there was someone who contacted him recently about it was something wanting to know who does he need to file with in the not the FTC, at the UK, from whatever MLM this person had gone through. And David was giving him some guidance, and every now and then, I forget the name of the department that David told him to contact, but they basically are all getting the runaround. It's like there's like not a centralized place for people to complain about. And I do think the problem is that people work in one, for instance, the guy who is starting the new MLM called Evera. I don't know if you've heard of that one or not. And it's basically now, it's a straight up pyramid scheme because there's no product. They have a name. He used to work with Unique. Then he created, it's like Melee or some beauty thing. I can't remember how to say it. Then he created this thing called Native, which was English as a second language, an online platform. That went belly up. And now he's creating a third thing. They keep moving around, and going from company to company, because people who will work for Unique and leave and go work for Beachbody, who will then leave and go work for Herbalife. It's very inbred, just like other industries are. For instance, being an instructional designer, there's other instructional designers here where I live that I know just because I'm in that, that bubble, so to speak, and, different companies that you go to, of each other because of that. It's kind of the same kind of thing, but the MLM bubble is, like much bigger because there are hundreds of them. And there's, I've done recently a series on Enagic, which is from Japan. It's a water filtration MLM. Right now, there's a measles outbreak in Samoa, and people have tried to give them the Kangen water. Well, that's not going to cure your measles. There's so many different things going on worldwide that overall, I mean, it's like, how do you, it goes back, I go back to Pandora's box. How do you now put this back in the box when it's out? I think the only thing that people can do is what we're doing, grassroots education, speaking out, people telling their stories to save other people from saying, wow, that sounds so good. Yeah, I think, yeah, I can do that. Yes. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yeah, and I think that because I think there was just a new thing that came out. Emily Leah made a video about this. I think I just watched it yesterday, and it was about Monet. They came out with some program or something that if you reach a certain level, you can become a founder, which how can you become a founder if there's already founders that founded the company? But I mean, maybe they're just trying to sell the dream. But she brought up a good point in her video is they're being called founders. So what is the liability then for them? Like, what are they, if something happens to the company, if they get taken, let's say that the company gets sued by the FTC, for example, are they going to be liable for something like that because they are considered a founder now? And no one would get back to her.
Well, I think it's going to go back to that as a title that you're given for a particular rank. It's nothing more than that. Just like influencer, just like coach, just like distributor, just like retailer, whatever an MLM calls people. I think they're using the word founder as a title. So it sounds like, oh, look, Because, you know, when I was scammed by an affiliate marketing, yes, I was a founder of that. Do I have any skin in the tea? You know, like I had nothing in it. I was given this title. That's all it was. It's just a title. And what can you be held liable for if all you have is a title? Because at the end of the day, you're an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's something else I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was.
Your brain got derailed too, that little train.
Oh no, you froze.
Oh, you froze for me too. Is it saying unstable or anything?
Oh no.
Oh, it just said, I get a message saying internet unstable. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, you froze for a minute there.
I've been frozen a couple times. So every now and then mine will go like internet unstable. You know, this whole thing. It is what it is, but you know, trying to then bring this back to the whole COPPA thing. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how to bring this back to COPPA. And we are kind of jumping around, but I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's more so for anti-MLM and everything like that. I think for us it's more so FTC related, only because they're not doing anything, and there's this huge uproar on. Here's another thing too, though, that I'm just, this is just my thought process, is the whole, you know, YouTube going after the content creators if something is marketed towards children. What's going to happen with social media?
Oh, no, I'm with it. It's the same thing. We have the same issue. Like, for instance, my husband's eldest child just turned 13, like over the summer. And so he's now on Facebook, and the sweet boy liked my Recovering Hunbot page. And I'm like, child, you have no idea what this is. But thank you. So cute. But, you know, I mean, really, like for Facebook at least, I know most people who are younger, they're not on that platform. You know, it's not appealing. A lot of people think like, oh, wow, I didn't even know people were still on Facebook. I've had people comment, you know, that before.
Yeah.
But, you know, and like right now with younger kids, you know, TikTok is very big. I know the boys are not allowed on TikTok, because I actually asked one of them, like, hey, what do you know about TikTok? Oh, I can't get on TikTok. I'm like, okay. But I think it's going to go back to, and we were talking about this before we started recording, there's always been something that parents have been trying to shield their children from, whether it is, you know, a particular type of music, whether it is something on TV, whether it is movies, whether it is social media. There's always going to be something that is going to be alarming, I believe, with, you know, culture in general, our society, and things are going to evolve. And it goes back to, we don't have that crystal ball. We can't predict what it's going to be. And I don't know if somebody could create a platform now and kind of like consider all the issues that have happened since, like, say, MySpace days to now, and think, what do we need to put in place? And if they had all of that in place, would it be able to even take off? I think it's the freedom of social media that's appealing to both adults and kids. But I don't know how to police social media. Like, I don't know what the age is, like when we're on Instagram, to be able to have an Instagram account, or for Twitter. Do you know what those are?
I don't know, but I've seen some really young kids on, for example, Instagram, and some of the poses that they do, some of the outfits that they wear, that was something that I wasn't even doing in high school. So it is a problem.
Yes.
And the issue is that, just like we said this before we started recording too, it's just like, there is a certain age, but I don't know what it is, but you can lie. You can put a different date. So how are they going to protect these kids from that? Because at that point, it's not the FTC's responsibility or the influencer's responsibility. At that point, it's the parents' responsibility to watch their children because their child is going online and saying that they're not the age that they are. So that's, I don't know if we talked about it while we were recording or if this was just before, but that's when it becomes the responsibility of the parent. And it's, you know, I don't have kids, so I can't really talk about certain things. I can't really have an opinion, but from someone who had very strict parents who monitored a lot of things, I do think that a lot of adults nowadays rely on someone else to protect their children. Not to offend anybody, but
Okay. Alrighty, I hope you've enjoyed hearing Monica and myself have a little chit chat about things. And remember to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you hit subscribe and that notification bell. And be sure to hop on over to Monica's channel so that you can see part 2. Thanks so much for spending time with me. And remember, you know, your story is important because it serves as a warning to others. Also, there's a link in my description that will help you file with the FTC, so be sure and check that out. If you haven't filed your experience with MLM with the FTC, I walk you through that in a video as well. And remember, change starts now.